All present.
Okay. Very good. Then I will call the meeting to order. This is the regular City Council meeting for Paso Robles City Council for Tuesday, March the 17th. This is going to be a new experience for many of us. Let's roll with it, try to enjoy it, and try to make the best out of it. I think it is the best thing for our community. So as we get started tonight, I would ask for everyone present to please stand, and possibly if Councilman Gregory could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is Pastor Cole present tonight for the invocation?
Yep. Yes, he is.
I'd invite him forward then.
Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father God, you are the maker of all things and persons, all authorities and positions. You give life, breath, health, and all that we have is because of you. In recent days, we've been reminded again that we are not ultimate masters of our own community, destinies, or even our own lives. Rather, we are simply stewards of all that you have given us. We know that we are called upon to steward even the difficult moments, unprecedented change, and dark times in our nation, county, and city. So as our community, our region, and our state face this terrible disease that is afflicting so many, we are humbled. We repent of our pride, sin, and selfishness. We acknowledge that we have far too easily taken for granted the ordinary, daily graces you give us. We admit that we desperately need both supernatural wisdom and your divine intervention. We humbly ask that you heal those in our region who are already afflicted by COVID-19 and protect those who have already been exposed that they may not catch this disease. We ask that you enable all community members to act wisely and carefully to stop the spread of this disease. We ask that you mercifully stop this pandemic, for you alone are in control of all things. We also ask that you grant protection, healing skills, and care to all the healthcare providers in our community as they face this crisis. Grant them special wisdom and insight to stop the spread of this pandemic. We thank you for our county health officers and ask that you grant them continued insight, energy, and leadership wisdom. We pray also for local business owners who are faced with difficult financial and personnel decisions, that they may know how to best provide for and protect their employees while also continuing to serve the people of this city. We ask for provision of resources, especially for all who already have or may lose their employment or business due to this crisis. We ask that you give the residents of this city courage, humor, humility, gracious speech, and flexibility as many of our normal patterns of life are disrupted. We ask that we may emerge from this time of crisis as a closer-knit community, more loving, more respectful, encouraging, and united. We pray for the children of this community that you not only provide for their physical needs, but also that you protect their minds and hearts from fear, frustration, and impatience. Grant the hardworking educators of this community and our school board the ability to know how best to educate our children during this time. We thank you for the police officers and firefighters and municipal workers who bravely protect, serve, and administer this city. We thank you for their self-sacrifice and faithfulness, even and especially during this time of crisis. We ask that your blessings, protection, and favor be upon all of them in special measure in the weeks ahead. We plead for divine wisdom for our mayor, city council, and city manager, that they may lead well, govern effectively, and do that which is beneficial to all of the persons in Paso Robles. We thank you for granting us these particular leaders and we are so thankful for their skillful and faithful service to this community. May all who participate in tonight's meeting forsake selfish willfulness and seek the good not only of themselves, but also others, particularly the weak, fearful, ill, and disadvantaged. Grant all who participate in these meetings the ability to listen well and respectfully, even when there are areas of disagreement. We thank you for the gift of your Son, Jesus Christ, the great and all-sufficient healer, through whom all who believe may be saved. It is in his name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Before we proceed, I need to make clear that for the record, this meeting is being conducted by teleconference pursuant to the Brown Act waivers provided for under the governor's executive order in response to the COVID-19 state of emergency. We will take up the emergency meeting item first, followed by the regular meeting agenda. I did have a telephone conference today with the mayors and county representatives and the county public health official. I'm saddened to say that the number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the county now, as of this hour, stands at 6. Yesterday it was 3. In speaking with the mayor of Morro Bay, who is involved in the medical industry, he says we've all been exposed. We just don't know it yet. So it's important that we maintain the proper precautions to make sure that we can help blunt the spread of this virus. Myself, the mayor, and Councilman Strong, in compliance with actions from the president, governor of the state, and the San Luis Obispo County Public Health Director, and out of an abundance of concern for the health of our citizens, are participating by telephone this evening. Council members Hammond, Gregory, and Garcia are in the council chambers. Tonight's agenda states, as always, that members of the public may attend the meeting here in the council chambers to observe your city government in action and provide public comment. Because of the governor's social distancing directives, however, there are only 16 seats in the chamber tonight. As a result, the agenda also states the public may live stream the meeting on the Paso Robles YouTube channel, in addition to the standard option of listening on the radio station, that is KPRL here in Paso Robles. The live stream link is prcity.com/YouTube. That's prcity.com/YouTube. And tonight's agenda is available on the city's website at prcity.com. Members of the public who wish to make a public comment can call in when the item they want to comment on is called for. There will be a staff person answering the call and putting people in queue to comment on each item. Please call the number listed on the agenda, which is 888-867-1694. The public was also invited to submit comments via email prior to the meeting. For those members of the public on the telephone line, we ask that you please mute your radio or live stream, minimize distracting background noise. We will be playing the audio over the phone live, so you will not miss anything. We'll make your phone call live when we select you to speak. If you wish to speak on more than one item, please hang up in between items and call back when the next item you wish to speak to is called. That way you're not hanging on the line forever and ever waiting for the next item to come up on the agenda. When you call back, it's the same phone number, and we'll repeat that several times tonight, 888-867-1694. As the mayor, I will announce each item, and after the staff presentation and the council questions, we'll ask for the members of the public who want to make a public comment to do so in turn. Comments from those persons present at the council chamber will be taken first, followed by comments from those on the telephone. When it's your turn, you'll be placed on the speaker by staff. Finally, any written communications received prior to the meeting will be read by a city staff member. All public comments will be limited to the customary 3-minute time limit. Our first item tonight is the emergency item, and I will turn that over to staff now to give us an update on what we're going to be doing with that.
Mayor Martin.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is City Manager Fucci. We have noticed the meeting tonight as both a regular city council meeting.
Tom, this is Steve, Mayor Pro Tem. We have not done a roll call. Before we start the meeting, you must have a roll call.
I announced as part of my comments who was present. Was I in error?
We have a joint meeting for this one with the Disaster Council and the City Council.
Very good. Can we have a dual roll call then, please?
Okay.
Switch it over to the thinking that it's playing through the TV, through the emulator.
Roll call for City Council. Councilmember Maria Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Steve Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember John Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Fred Strong.
Here.
And Mayor Steve Martin.
Here.
Roll call of the Disaster Council. Chair Steve Martin.
Here.
Vice Chair Tom Frucci.
Here.
Chief Jonathan Stornetta.
Here.
And Chief Ty Lewis.
Here.
Very good.
Mr. Mayor, all members are present of both the council and the Disaster Council.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we have noticed tonight's meeting not only as a regular meeting of the City Council, but also as an emergency meeting of both the City Council and the Disaster Council. Our City Code has the Disaster Council as an advisory body to the City Council, and so we would like that body to act on the recommended action tonight as well. In my role as Director of Emergency Services and pursuant to Paso Robles Municipal Code, Chapter 2.24, this morning I declared a local emergency based on the threatened existence of conditions of extreme peril to the health and safety of persons within the city. These conditions are present as a result of the rapidly increasing spread of the novel coronavirus, which causes a condition in people called COVID-19 across the state and across the county. A copy of my emergency declaration has been included with the emergency agenda, and I'm asking tonight that the Disaster Council and the City Council adopt a resolution ratifying that emergency declaration. Paso Robles Municipal Code 2.24.030 established the Disaster Council, and it has all members that have been appointed present this evening. At this time,
Okay.
anyone who wishes to speak on this item should call, as the mayor has already requested, 1-888-867-1694. At that time, when the call is answered, you'll be asked to provide your name and wait on the line until it is your turn to speak. The emergency declaration has many benefits, including the following. First, it converts our operations to the Incident Command System, ICS, which is necessary for us to work seamlessly with other jurisdictions. Second, it authorizes our Emergency Operations Center to activate to the required levels. And we did activate the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, this morning at 10 a.m. Third, it utilizes all employees as emergency workers. Under state law, every one of our 200 city employees in situations as these are considered to be emergency workers, and that gives both us and them the ability to ensure that we can provide the services to the best of our ability. Fourth, it reduces the constraints on purchasing and contracting. For example, now under the municipal code, we are required to get written competitive bids for certain types of purchasing. We don't have the time in certain situations in an emergency to go through that written bid process. Certainly, we will continue to work to ensure that everything we purchase is on the most cost-effective basis possible. And finally, it ensures that all reimbursable expenses can be submitted to the state and federal governments to maximize our chances of being reimbursed. Under the Government Code Section 8630B and the Paso Robles Municipal Code, Chapter 2.24, a proclamation of local emergency such that I issued today must be ratified by the Disaster Council and the City Council within 7 calendar days to remain in effect. Accordingly, this evening I'm requesting that both the Disaster Council and the City Council adopt a resolution, actually approve a resolution ratifying the emergency declaration. This time, Your Honor, if you want to see if there are any questions, that would be appropriate.
Yes. Questions from the Disaster Council or City Council of city staff before we go to the public?
Councilman Hammond. Tom, what is the maximum, or do you have a ceiling in your authority? I think before we had, I think, a $30,000 level. Does this open that up to higher value that you can authorize?
So on an ongoing basis, the level is 35,000. You're very close. And yes, it does increase the level, but it requires me to bring any purchase that might exceed that level to the city council as soon as is practical.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? I'm hearing none. So I want to remind people in the audience and people listening in how we're going to do this. First, we start with questions or comments from anyone in the room. Then we will go to the phones, and finally, any written correspondence will be read by staff. If you plan to comment by telephone, you should call right now and get in queue. The number is 1-888-867-1694. We ask you to give us your name, and as usual, public comment is limited to three minutes per person. So with that, is there anyone in the room who would like to make a comment at this time?
No.
Very good. Is there anyone in line on the telephone that would like to make a comment?
No, there's not.
We have no callers. Very good. Is there any written communication that staff should read into the record?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. In that case, I'll bring it back to the council. Now, I have a question. Since we are actually meeting as a joint council and as a disaster council, do we need 2 motions and 2 votes?
Yes.
We should do, yeah.
The answer is yes. Very good. So if there's no further comment or conversation among council members, I would entertain a motion from the council for action by the city council.
Mayor Martin, this is Steve Gregory. I do have one quick question. So
Yes, please.
On the roll call, we have 2 separate entities with 2 separate groups. So we're roll calling to each of those groups?
Yes, my understanding from the question I just asked was we would have 2 different actions and 2 different votes.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, I would actually, this is Tom, I'm sorry, I would actually prefer, if you don't mind, to do the disaster council first, because then the disaster council is making a recommendation to the full council.
Thank you. I had a 50% chance of being right, and I blew it. So if someone from the disaster council would like to make a motion, we would appreciate that.
Go ahead, John. Oh, all right. Well, how about if I read it for them, Steve, John Hammond?
Yes.
All right. So the motion would be to adopt a resolution of disaster council and city council of the city of El Paso de Robles proclaiming a local emergency regarding novel coronavirus COVID-19 and ratifying the proclamation of local emergency by the city manager. Need a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Could you identify the second, please?
Jonathan Stornetta.
So,
Thank you.
excuse me, Mr. Mayor, just point of clarification. If we could ask the city attorney, do we need their original motion to be by a member of the disaster council?
I was just reading it for their.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So we just need a.
So moved by the police chief.
Perfect.
Okay, I understand we have a motion by the police chief, seconded by Mr. Stornetta. Is that correct?
Correct.
If there's no further conversation, could we get a roll call vote of the disaster council, please?
Yes. Chair Steve Martin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Tom Frucci,
Yes.
Chief Jonathan Stornetta,
Yes.
and Chief Ty Lewis.
Yes.
Motion apparently passes unanimously. Now we bring it back to the city council for its action on that recommendation. Is there a motion?
I move, Steve Gregory, I move we move to accept this.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Gregory, seconded by Councilman Hammond. If there's no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Maria Garcia?
Here.
Is that? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Gregory,
Aye.
Councilmember John Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Fred Strong,
Aye.
and Mayor Steve Martin.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That takes care of the business for the Disaster Council and for the City Council on this item. Is there anything further we have to do, Mr. City Manager?
No, sir. Thank you very much to the City Council and the Disaster Council for ratifying that emergency declaration. That'll be a big help to the city and our residents and businesses as we go forward.
Thank you. If there's no further business for the Disaster Council, we're going to adjourn that meeting. We will now proceed as the Paso Robles City Council. We return now to our regular agenda. Prior to our meeting in council chambers tonight, we had an announced closed session meeting. I'll ask City Attorney if we have any reportable action from that.
The council convened in closed session for a conference with labor negotiators as identified on the agenda. There is no reportable action.
Very good. Thank you. We have on our agenda tonight several presentations. I'm happy to read those over the phone if that's all right with the council. If not, we can make those presentations, those written proclamations delivered to the appropriate parties. What's your pleasure?
Your voice sounds good, Honorable Mayor.
Yeah, that'll work, Mayor.
Excellent. So I will proceed now to the proclamation of the Lions Club 80th anniversary. Is there anyone from the Lions Club present?
No.
Very good. So we trust they're listening in, and we will deliver this proclamation to them in writing. Whereas Lions International has been the global leader in service for more than a century, and whereas Lions International serves locally, creates a global impact, brings hope to millions of people each year, and whereas Lions International Foundation, Lions is making an even greater impact through grants that fund large-scale projects, whereas the world is changing and so are Lions by innovating so they can bring Lions around the world together to serve more people than ever through technology and supporting causes like diabetes and vision assistance, and whereas the Paso Robles Lions Club was established September 6, 1939, with 35 charter members, including Kermit King and Melvin Crippo. Early projects included the 1940 painting and erecting street signage for the city of Paso Robles, including tree planting, horseshoe pits, barbecue pits. They erected the War Memorial flagpole at the south end of the football field. Paso Robles Lions Club has provided the Lions Insight, free eye surgeries for those in need, and community elementary school eye screening with vision examinations, basic needs packages for the homeless locally, numerous community service projects such as installing bricks in the downtown core and installation of bicycle racks and benches with downtown Paso Robles Main Street program, youth sports awards since 1946, high school youth speaker contest for scholarships, Paso Robles High School scholarships, Paso Robles Pioneer Day bean feed, painted downtown curbs red as needed, cleaned up the streets, and helped with the Mid-State Fair livestock purchase. And whereas the Paso Robles Lions Club has been working tirelessly behind the scenes in our community for 80 years, now therefore be it resolved that I, Stephen W. Martin, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor and speaking on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby recognize the Lions Club as they celebrate their 80th anniversary and honor their achievements. And our community is very grateful to the Lions Club for all they've done over the many decades here in Paso Robles. Next, we have a proclamation, April 2020 as the month of the Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas the city of Paso Robles recognizes that every moment in a child's life is an opportunity for that child to learn, that the quality of these experiences may determine whether a child succeeds in school and in life, and that all children need caring and loving adults in their lives. And whereas April, Month of the Child, and Child Abuse Prevention Month marks a time to recognize that our community's children are precious assets, that the quality of their early years is our collective responsibility, and that we commit ourselves to ensuring that each and every child experiences a high-quality early environment at home, childcare, at school, and in the community that will promote their optimal development. Whereas Saturday, April 4th, 2020 will commemorate the 42nd Annual Children's Day in the Plaza celebration from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at San Luis Obispo Mission Plaza. This year's celebration, where children and families will have the opportunity to discover creativity, individuality, diversity, and the arts while exploring community resources, Whereas a variety of other events honoring Month of the Child will provide an opportunity to acknowledge the dedication of individuals and organizations to improve the lives of children and youth in our county and raise the awareness of the community, employers, and elected officials of the need to improve the quality, availability, and accessibility of programs supporting children. And whereas Friday, April 30th, 2020 will commemorate Child Care Awareness Day as an honor of the We Are the Care initiative to bring awareness and advocacy for the local child care crisis. Through this initiative, we as a community of partners envision a San Luis Obispo County where all families can find and afford quality care for their children and where child care professionals are valued for their critical role in building a solid foundation for children and families to thrive in the world. Whereas Friday, April 24th, 2020, our county will participate in the statewide raising of the Children's Memorial Flag to honor and raise awareness about the many children in our midst who suffer daily from abuse and neglect, and pledge our support for strategies that strengthen families and protect our young ones. And whereas in this caring and connected county, we will, including and beyond the Month of the Child, continue to dedicate our efforts and our resources to investing in our community's future by investing in and supporting our community's children and youth. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Stephen W. Martin, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Paso Robles and speaking on behalf of all citizens, do hereby proclaim April 2020 as the Month of the Child, Child Abuse Prevention Month, and April 30th, 2020 as Child Care Awareness Day. A whole lot of activities being planned. I hope that at least some of them get executed in the current atmosphere. We appreciate their service also. Next up, item number 3. If I understand the agenda correctly, this item has been pulled for a later presentation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so the anti-vaping proposal from our Youth Commission will be placed on a future agenda. Item number 4, an item of great interest to us all. Mr. Stornetta will give us a coronavirus presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Martin, members of the council, Jonathan Stornetta, Fire Chief. Tonight I'll talk a little bit more about the coronavirus, how it's affecting us locally, and also provide you more information on how you can take actions to prevent yourself from contracting it. So I'll start off with a current situation report, and at the federal level, the updated statistics as of today were just over 4,000 confirmed cases of the COVID-19 with 74 fatalities. As you know, President Trump declared a national emergency on March 13th. He has restricted some travel, and the CDC is encouraging the public to limit their travel to areas that have seen a high number of patients who have contracted the virus. CDC also recommends canceling non-essential gatherings of 10 or more people. In California, the current situation is 369 confirmed cases and 6 deaths. Governor Newsom made the following request a couple of days ago. They're requesting all bars and wineries, nightclubs and brew pubs to close to limit the social gatherings and the contraction of the virus. Seniors greater than 65 and those with chronic conditions such as respiratory disease are urged to isolate at home to minimize their exposure, and additionally, cancellations of mass gatherings. Here in San Luis Obispo County, yesterday it was 3 cases, today it's 6, so it's doubled in just a day. San Luis Obispo County declared a public health emergency just a few days ago. All schools were closed here in Paso Robles and throughout the county. The EOC was activated at 10 a.m. this morning. The mayors and the city managers and the fire chiefs continue to have weekly briefings and sometimes even daily to make sure we're keeping up with the information flow. We also activated our JIC today. Our JIC is our Joint Information Center, so that's a way to make sure that we're ensuring the public is getting the information as quickly as possible, and if they have any questions, they can call us for those answers. So here in Paso Robles, we have no confirmed cases. We have implemented a COOP plan. A COOP plan is a continuity of operations plan, and that identifies our essential services, essential staffing analysis, and lines of succession if one of us becomes exposed to the virus and we're unable to act in our current roles. We've implemented a number of workplace controls, not only to provide a better, safer work environment for our employees, but also for those members of the public that are coming into our facilities. We've been trying to get some additional supplies, especially for public safety, but a lot of those are on back order at the state level, and that's just another reason we're trying to assure the public or limit the public from getting out and exposing others, because we don't have the necessary supplies that we need at this time to treat the mass number of people that we expect this potentially to infect. Again, we're going to try providing as much public information as possible. If you go to www.prcity.com, you'll see a number of press releases from us, and then also as well as some public health releases. And then the schools here in Paso Robles are closed. So what are the impacts on city services? So the police department is operating at a level 3, so that means they are only responding to emergencies. If it's non-emergency, you can still call into the police department. They'll take a report right there in the station. We did declare a local emergency as stated earlier this morning at 10 o'clock. A number of events throughout the city have been canceled to be in compliance with Governor Newsom and President Trump's request. Recreational classes have all been canceled. City Hall has been closed, but there are alternative service options, so you can call in, and if you need an appointment, we can make that available to you. The libraries have been closed and all programs are canceled. The staff is still working inside the library, so if you have questions or concerns, you're welcome to call in. The fire stations have also been closed to the public, and we've had no change in responses on the fire side. So I continually hear the comments that, why are we so concerned about COVID-19 compared to the flu? More people die from the flu. So I put this this slide up here to show people the impacts of the coronavirus. So you can see the signs and symptoms of both on the left, but the most important part is what's the difference that's on the right over there. So the flu infects about 1.3 persons. So you are contagious to about 1.3 persons. But what's different is coronavirus is 2 to 3. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is the flu usually shows up within a couple of days and we know we have it. The coronavirus, you may not have symptoms or signs of it up to 14 days. So if we think about we're out in the public and we're doing things and we're feeling fine, but yet we don't know we're exposed to it. So that's probably one of the biggest reasons. The mortality rate from the flu is 1 to 2%. The mortality rate from the coronavirus is 3.5%. And the biggest thing is there is a vaccine for the flu. There is not a vaccine available for the coronavirus. So flattening the curve, we're trying to get this out in the public. And what this slide's exhibiting here is what we want to do is we want everyone to take every precaution they can to not expose themselves to others, because we don't necessarily know that we have this. So as you see the peak on the graph there, that's the worst case scenario, that people aren't taking any of the precautions that we're advising them to. So what that's going to do if you're not taking any of our recommendations is we're going to overload the hospital system. If we overload the hospital system, then they're unable to treat the patients out there. The hospitals have very limited supplies for critical patients, specifically ventilators. So what we want to do is you limit your exposure out in the public, then slowly people may get sick, but it's not a mass amount of people that are showing up at the hospital all at once. We're going to overwhelm not only our hospitals, but you're going to overwhelm your first responders as well. And the more we overwhelm them, then the more your decrease of survivability, your survivability rates decrease along with that. So what are the goals of the city Paso Robles at this time? We want to reduce the total number of cases. And by doing that, it's just the recommendations from CDC, the Public Health Department, and as well as the governor of the state. We want to flatten that curve. That's extremely important that we do it. Protect our healthcare workers and first responders. And we want to obtain the needed supplies that are on back order currently. So that's a priority to us. And then we want to make sure that we keep the public informed as we move forward. So what are our current risk levels? Well, the risk levels are low if you follow the guidance that's out there. And we talk about hand washing, social distancing, maintaining that 6-foot distance between you and the other person, and limiting your exposure. So staying home and not being out in those public gatherings. There is an increased risk for the elderly, people over 65 of age that have a history of respiratory distress. So what are we planning for on this risk level? We're planning for right now that 35% of the population will be infected if we don't flatten that curve. 85% of those Patients that are affected will only have mild symptoms. The others will be critical, and those are the patients that we're seeing in the hospital on possibly the ventilators. So looking forward, what are we seeing out there right now? We know right now that many of these businesses are hurting, as well as the employees that are unable to go to work. So we're going to see impacts from this continuing the longer this event continues to go on. It's going to get worse before it gets better. We saw the rates double just from yesterday. So we're really depending on the public to listen to our advice and everyone coming together and doing the right thing. It's been pretty surprising seeing the public groups out there that are already forming. There's one out there right now for people that need their medications delivered or need food delivered. So I know there's a number of those on Facebook. So if you want to help out, please look for some different routes that way. And then us as a city will try posting some of those as well if you're willing to assist. How to reduce your exposure. We talked about a number of these time and time again. Just continue to wash your hands, exposure in the public, and avoid close contact. These remain consistent throughout the last couple of weeks through presentations to CDC and the Public Health Department. Stay informed. So for the latest information, you can go to the CDC website, cdc.gov, readyslow.org, or just go to our website at prcity.com. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stornetta. Before I open it up for comments from the public or from council, I have a couple of comments to piggyback with. And again, I remind the public, if you're going to call in with a comment or a question, you need to call right now, 888-867-1694. You said a couple of things that we've been stressing very strongly with the public out there. Number one is information. So easy to get so worried that we grab on information that may not be entirely accurate. That's why the city is putting out the great amount of information that it is. That's the reason the Public Health Department at the county level is doing that. All the mayors are doing that. I myself, on my mayor's blog at pasomayor.com, which is something that I do, it's not a taxpayer expense thing, I'm upping the frequency of my mayor's blog to give the latest information about what's going on in the city. I've also contacted all the media in the county that we deal with, saying that I'm available to them whenever they have a question about what is happening in Paso Robles, so we can get this information out to the public and people can take control of their health. I think the thing that really drives concern is when people feel like they don't have the real information and they're not in control of their health. On top of that, in conversations with the county public health officers and also looking at CDC guidelines, there's so many things that you can read and try to respond to. But according to the public health officer, the three things that are the most important for people to remember are distance, disinfect, and diagnose. You need to keep distance away from people around you while we're in the midst of this crisis. As I've told folks, I'm in a business where I shake hands a lot. No more right now. It's elbow touching and fist bumping because that's what's going to keep people healthy. We've kind of had this little joke about washing your hands and singing happy birthday to yourself twice because that keeps you washing your hands for 20 seconds, which is what you need minimum to actually get them clean and get the preventative action that you want. I do that a lot. I do it when I don't think I need to wash my hands. Hand sanitizers are good. And also on hard surfaces such as cell phones and countertops and things like that, wipe them down, use alcohol wipes, use antiseptic wipes, and kill the virus before it has a chance to get to you. Of course, as they always say, don't touch your face. Other than that, it's a matter of diagnosis. We all know that a certain number of us will get ill with this. Most of us will not have a serious problem, but we will still be contagious. So we need to be aware of our own health situation. If we're feeling ill, don't go to work. Don't go out in public. Take care of yourself as you would if you were sick otherwise. You have a temperature, you have a headache, you feel achy, you need to rest, you need to get liquids, you need to take painkillers, ibuprofen, things like that. If you have a temperature over 103, if you have difficulty breathing, call a doctor. A doctor knows how to handle this as an infectious case, get you processed for the care you need without endangering others. So distance, disinfect, diagnose. We're all going to all take control of our health care, and we're going to get through this together. Thank you for allowing me to soapbox a little bit. I'll open it to the council if there are any other questions or comments about Mr. Stornetta's presentation.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Hammond, for question for Jonathan.
Yes.
Okay, so Jonathan, we'll focus, I think, a little bit on that, the 3Ds again, the distance, disinfect, and diagnosis. The diagnosis is what I'm kind of concerned about. I know we have an issue that if everybody starts inundating the hospital, we're going to have a major problem. So obviously the first thing is to go to their doctor. And can the doctor do the diagnosis with, I understand there's some testing. Can you explain the testing and how that works? And
From what I understand at this point, there's one hospital that can test and then the public health department. And so what we're finding right now is the temperature is 100.4. So what we ask people if they're feeling ill or they think they have any signs or symptoms is take your temperature twice a day. And if it hits 100.4, then we recommend calling a physician. We don't want to inundate the hospitals, but if that's your only option, then we don't want to discourage that either. But a lot of these insurance companies are offering what's called the teledoc. So if you could find out through your insurance company, you can just phone in and they can do their initial evaluation with you and refer you further to a facility for further evaluation.
so that's what I was asking. Are there, in our area, I know that the federal government's mobilizing a lot of these testing facilities. Are we going to have anywhere close other than our own hospital or your physician, or is there other places that people can go to?
I have not heard of any additional places as of yet.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for
Thank
you.
you.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
This is Councilman Steve Gregory for Jonathan. So I read the protocol on one of the victims, and they were able to call their doctor, go to their doctor's office and get tested. Is that something that they had to arrange ahead of time with the county health department to get the test kits, or are some of the doctors equipped?
I don't know that answer.
Okay.
Most of that information is kept pretty privately, so
Okay.
that would be something for the public health director. Sorry, I'm unable to answer that.
No, it's okay. I thought that it was nice to see the first two cases follow protocol perfectly with their doctor. So thank you.
So Steve, if I can interject, I did have a conversation with the county public health person, and the county has what's called a level 3 lab, which has the capability of doing the COVID-19 test. It is a limited capacity they have, and obviously as more cases present, it's going to become more and more taxed. They've requested materials to increase the capacity. Right now, they are prioritizing hospitalized patients that are showing symptoms and also seriously ill patients that are referred by a physician.
Thank you.
Any other council comments or questions of Mr. Sternetta?
No, sir.
Hearing none, we'll open it. Excuse me. Maria, did you have something?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll open it to the public. First, anyone in the room like to make a comment or ask a question? I'm hearing nothing. I have a note here saying we have no callers on this issue. Do we have any written communication to be read?
No, we do not.
Very good. In that case, we appreciate the presentation. We're going to continue to get the information out to the public and do our best health practices to make sure that we can, to the greatest extent possible, slow the advance of the virus and make sure that we have medical facilities and capacities for people who do become serious. So we move on now to general public comments, and I'm going to say this a lot tonight. I don't want anybody to miss it if they just tuned in. If you wish to comment on anything tonight, you need to call 888-867-1694. You'll be answered by a staff person who'll be placed in queue, and you'll be alerted when it's your time to speak. As the item comes up, you need to call right away, and then once you've had a chance to speak, go ahead and hang up. If you want to speak to a different item later in the agenda, you can call back. That's the way it's set up. We're moving to general public comments now. This is the time set aside for people to ask questions and make comments on items that do not appear on tonight's agenda. We ask you, please, if you're present, to fill out a speaker identification card, take it to city staff, give us your name when you begin to speak, and we limit the public comment to 3 minutes per person. So is there anybody in the room that would like to speak?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I have a note that we have no written comments to be read for general public comments, and we have no callers on the line right now. So we move on now from general public comments. I'll ask our city manager if we have any agenda items to be deferred tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we do have two items to be deferred tonight. The first is item 15, which concerns, I apologize, wrong. Item 16, which concerns the 200-unit residential project on, sorry, I'm blanking the name of the road. But in any event, it's item 16, 200-unit residential project, and it was appealed. The decision of the Planning Commission was appealed to the City Council, and that item has been continued at the request of the applicant. Then the second item that is being continued and postponed to a future meeting, time uncertain, is item 17, which is the Niblick Road Complete and Sustainable Streets Corridor Plan. There is no urgency on that project, so in order to ensure we did not overload council chamber tonight with people who are interested in that project, we have postponed that to a future date.
Very good. So we move now to the consent calendar. The consent calendar is a list of items that we don't believe require separate discussion. That being said, anyone on the council or in the public can ask a brief question, make a brief comment before we take a vote on those list of items. Anyone on the council, anyone in the community can ask that an item be withdrawn for separate consideration. If that occurs, it's our usual practice to take that withdrawn item and put it at the end of the agenda. Do we have any questions or any items to be pulled by members of the council?
No.
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 Very good. We'll turn it over to the public. First, to the people in the room, is there anyone that would like to make a comment or have an item pulled from the consent calendar?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Hearing nothing, I will ask if there's anybody on the phone that would like to make a comment or ask a question about the consent calendar. We have no callers. Is there any written communication from the public regarding the consent calendar that needs to be read into the record?
No, there's not.
Very good. In that case, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll go ahead and make a motion. This is Councilman Gregory.
Wait.
Oh, wait, we have a phone call.
We do have a phone call?
Yes, sir.
Let's hold for that. Let's hold for that.
They hung up.
Okay. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve consent agendas items 5 through 14 on the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Strong, second.
We have a motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilwoman Garcia. And if I heard correctly, the caller hung up, apparently not really that concerned about making a comment at this time. If there's no further discussion regarding the consent calendar, I would ask for a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Steve Gregory.
Aye.
Councilmember Maria Garcia.
Aye.
Councilmember Fred Strong.
Aye.
Councilmember John Hammond.
Aye.
Mayor Steve Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. We move on now to public hearings. We have item number 15, General Plan Amendment 19-003, etc. So we'll turn it over for staff report to Mr. Free.
Mr. Mayor, before we do that, would you like me to report on the items approved on the consent calendar this evening?
I apologize. You know, it was going so well until I hit that tonight. But yes, we'll take a half a step back. I'll ask the city manager to please recap what we've done on the consent calendar for those listening in, probably more than usual, as to what we actually did. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. So tonight on the consent calendar, the City Council approved its City Council minutes from the meeting of March 3rd. It also approved the warrant register, and the warrant register is the list of checks the city writes for the goods and services that it purchases and receives. And the warrant register this evening was for $1.25 million, and $250,000 of that was for the work being done to Union Road in front of Barney Schwartz Park. Given that the city's total budget is approximately $100 million, that is not an extraordinary amount to be spent in a 2-week period. Third, the council received the advisory body minutes from the Parks and Recreation Committee and the Library Board of Trustees. The council does not approve those minutes, but it does receive them from its advisory bodies. Next, the council allocated the $590,000 that the city expects to receive this year. That is fiscal year 2021, starting July 1st, from Senate Bill 1, and that is the measure recently approved by the state to improve the level of street maintenance throughout the state. And the city has directed that money be spent in the area of Nicholas, Rambouillet, Wade, and Nicholas. And it will be primarily for periodic maintenance, including slurry seal, crack seal, sidewalk repair, curb ramp replacement, etc. Next, the council approved compaction testing services for Spring Street between 24th and 36th. As the community is well aware, we've been doing a very extensive replacement of aged and defective water mains and sewer pipelines, installing new water mains, new pipelines, and new optical fiber conduit. And it is important to ensure that the soil and other material that's filled on top of those mains and on the entire road surface is compacted to the appropriate degree, not only to protect the pipes themselves, so a heavy truck going over them doesn't crack a water main or sewer main, but in addition to ensure that the final lift of pavement can last its full useful life. Next, the council approved a reimbursement agreement with San Luis Obispo County for the Drive Creek Road repairs project. That is a joint project between the city and the county. We have proceeded with the majority of work that we have done to replace water mains and sewer mains under Dry Creek Road east of Airport Road all the way out to the Warbirds Museum. Now we will be coming back this summer for phase 1 and phase 2 in the fall to do the final lift of pavement and finish the road. And at a point east of the Warbirds Museum, it crosses the city boundary, becomes county land, but it was important to do the road at the same time all the way out to Jardine Road. So the county is reimbursing us for their portion of the project. And some of the curves will be straightened out there in the county area to improve safety for cars. Next, the council accepted a right-of-way easement at 2485 Theater Drive. And this is important because at some point in the future, Theater Drive will have to be widened, and as improvements are made to existing properties, they do grant us a right-of-way easement so that the widening can occur when it's needed. Next, the council approved a contract amendment with Rincon Consultants for the Paso Robles Gateway Annexation Project, and that's the project at the southwest corner of the city on the northwest corner of Highway 46 and 101. And Rincon Consultants has just finished up the environmental impact report. It was a complex report and required the contract amount to exceed what was originally budgeted. And as the council knows, we contract with the consultant to perform the work. And by us picking the consultant and supervising the consultant, that ensures the objectivity of the project. The developer creates a drawdown account and pays for all the work. So we are fully reimbursed for any expenses that are incurred. Next, the council approved an amendment to Section 8 of a resolution previously approved by the council back in 2006 regarding the collection of water and wastewater connection fees. The majority of development impact fees we collect are collected upon the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Traditionally, we have collected the sewer and water connection fees at a different point, and now we're aligning them all at the same point. And the advantage is we will certainly, just as we did before, get all of our money. It's just a timing issue to make things a little bit more straightforward and streamlined for developers who are trying to build homes in our city. Next, the council approved a series of amendments to the previously approved wage and benefit package with the unrepresented confidential professional and management group and part-time employees. This was an action that the council took just a few meetings ago, but because our contract with CalPERS is a little bit obscure, when we did transmit all of the agreements that had been achieved on a collaborative basis between the management employees and the city to CalPERS, they are requiring some minor changes to it, and so we are bringing those changes to the council this evening. The council approved those this evening, and Mr. Mayor, that is the full extent of your consent calendar.
Thank you very much. Now we will move on to public hearings. Item number 15 General Plan Amendment 19-003, General Plan Amendment 2020 Land Use Cycle Number 2, Rezone 19-003, Plan Development 19-013, and Conditional Use Permit 19-16 to allow for the development of the 48-bed, 7,525 square foot homeless navigation center at 3100 Sulphur Springs Road. Mr. Grace?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Darren Nash, our city planner, will be making this presentation tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Darren Nash, city planner. This is the First Step Homeless Navigation Center. The series of applications and entitlements we're requesting the council to review tonight, including the general plan amendment. The shelter is proposed to be located at the city's wastewater treatment plant, the entry road, Sulphur Springs Road, off of the on-ramp to the Highway 101 north at 46 East Interchange. The project has been provided with a site plan with some designs for a metal building for this project, approximately 7,500 square feet. The initial phase is a 36-bed homeless warming shelter with the ability to go up to 48. The development plan is before you, along with the conditional use permit, which lists rules and regulations related to the warming shelter. Again, the project photograph of it here, a perspective, metal building up to 48-bed dormitory style facility. This project necessitates a general plan amendment. The current land use for this property is commercial service, and we're requesting it be changed to public facilities. We're requesting that the zoning map be changed from the existing C3 zoning to public facilities as well, to be consistent with the general plan land use change. There's a series of changes within the zoning code that are proposed to be amended to accommodate the facility as well. And we're looking at the request of the development plan and the conditional use permit. These are some zoning and land use maps showing the change from commercial C3 to public facilities. And again, the land use map going from commercial service to public facility. Various text changes throughout the zoning code to accommodate this project as well. The city has partnered with ECHO, El Camino Housing organization, for their expertise in running the facility. So they're part of this project as well. The project has processed a mitigated negative declaration. We did receive some comments from the mitigated negative declaration during the 30-day review process. Caltrans commented and had some concern about the access to the site and lack of information related to the city's proposed shuttle program. The city did write a letter, indicate and provide them with a shuttle program schedule that outlines how shuttles would be involved with taking people to and from the facility, therefore making the impacts on transportation less than significant. So tonight what we're looking for is the council has options to either take no action, choose not to approve the project, or option 2 is to approve the project and the accompanying entitlements. 3 would be to modify that option 2. 4, refer back to staff and the planning commission, or 5, make findings for denying option 2. The recommendation of staff is to consider option 2, thereby starting the process for the general plan amendment, approve the mitigated negative declaration, and accompanying zone change, general plan amendments, development plan, and conditional use permit. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We do have Julie Dolan here, who has some information specifically about the operations of the facility, as well as Jeff Almashad, who is here on behalf of ECHO, who are also here to answer questions if you would like. Other than that, that would conclude staff's presentation.
Very good. I don't see an action here having to do with the actual operation of the facility, although there may be questions about that. Regarding the item that is before us, are there any council questions of staff at this point?
Yes, Steve Gregory, question for Darren. So Darren,
Yes.
On the rezone, we rezoned the whole water treatment area for the wastewater treatment and the recycled water area.
Let's take a look. So on the zoning map amendment, basically the whole wastewater treatment plant site is zoned C3. We would change to public facility. On the general plan land use, a portion of you can see on the left-hand side there, the blue, half of it, the northern half is blue. It's already has a land use designation. The southerly half is the commercial service, the red. So in this instance, we're just looking at the red going to the blue to be consistent with the northern piece.
So that zoning allows us to operate our wastewater treatment, recycled water and everything else. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Hammond.
Yes, sir.
Darren, can you expand a little bit on the transportation? I guess it was a proposal that the city's making to Caltrans with the way we're going to handle these folks for moving them back and forth.
Correct.
I heard there's some timing, certain times of the year will be a couple buses or something that goes back and forth. Can you expand on that a little bit?
I think I'll have Julie explain, and she has a schedule she's working on.
Julie Dolan, Community Services Director for the city. Appreciate the question about the shuttle. We have emulated Paso Cares programming at the time that Paso Cares was transporting some clients from the site where they currently provide an evening meal to various churches throughout the community when during inclement weather they were offering a place to stay. So looking at what Paso Cares did, the city has put together a plan of continuing a shuttle type system. Some of the key differences are that we are no longer only transporting during inclement weather. The plan is to have the overnight stays available 6 months out of the year from November through April. So the plan would be to initiate an agreement with most likely Ride-On, because Ride-On had a willingness to engage in this kind of agreement with Paso Cares, in which we would have either 2 vans or 1 van making 2 trips so that we could potentially transport as many as 36 clients to the warming center for an evening meal. Although the conditional use permit indicates 48 beds, when we first complete this construction project, there will only be 36. We wanted to allow some wiggle room for a potential expansion down the line. So that's why the conditional use permit indicates a greater number. So going with our beginning of operations with 36 beds, we can transport 18 clients at a time in a van. So again, either with 2 vans or 1 van making 2 trips, so that we offer a couple of different times for the clients to be transported out to the center. We would propose that this would happen in the mid to late afternoon. The clients would get to the center. They would have sufficient time to have some laundry done, to make use of the showers on the site. And this would happen even during the times when we're not offering the overnight stays, because certainly 365 days of the year, we do intend to enable clients to have meals and to make contacts, most importantly, with social services agencies that would be on site during that time. Then after they've taken part in those services and the showers and potentially the laundry service, the vans would return and transport the clients back to that site on Riverside. It seems like the best site to initiate the shuttle because, frankly, the clients are accustomed to gathering there now. They continue to be served a meal there now. That would be one schedule during fair weather, if you will. Then the 6 months when we're offering the overnight stays, not only would we have the shuttles returning people that same evening if they choose not to spend the night, but we would also have a shuttle service in the morning. Once the clients that had spent the night were up and about in the morning, then the shuttles would arrive and bring them back in for the day. So that is the intention. It's a little bit complex, but once we just get to a regular schedule, as we said, we have seen this work successfully with Paso Cares. We have seen transportation agencies like Ride On willing to provide this service, and that is our plan to initiate the programming at the Warming Center.
Okay, Julie, who's funding this shuttle? Would that be from ECHO and their?
This would be a part of the City of Paso Robles' obligation in providing the programming at the Warming Center. But I will say that certainly with our director, Jeff Almachat, working through ECHO, we continue to raise funds. We have yet to hear when the HAP grant, which is our next opportunity for state funds, comes about. We've yet to hear when that application is available for us, but we will certainly be applying for those funds as well. But yes, this would be folded into our overall operational expenses for running the Homeless Services Center.
Okay, and then the last question I had was pedestrian traffic, foot traffic to the site, and obviously having to cross the on-ramp going up, 101 North. Are we putting some sort of a crosswalk or some way? I mean, what is going to be the way to get people on foot to that location?
And that I might go back to Darren for. I know we've had an on-site visit with Caltrans, and Darren or Warren might have more details about that.
Right.
So right now, there isn't a route of travel for pedestrians to the site. That is the purpose of the shuttle. That was Caltrans' question and purpose of the letter. We are working on a separate project from this, which would be to provide a pedestrian way of travel between basically Black Oak Drive, where the AM/PM market is, all the way to the shelter. There's 3 different options to get there. 2 would provide crossings across, it's not actually the on-ramp, it's Sulphur Springs Road that connects with 46 West. And a third option would be actually use the existing undercrossing or existing bridge structure of that road and go under the road. There's pros and cons with all 3 options. We actually we've been on a site visit with Caltrans to basically walk all 3 options with them. They're currently in the process of reviewing those options. We have a conference call scheduled with them next week to get their feedback on that. We do expect one of those will rise to the top as the preferred solution. That will come back eventually as a project that hopefully the city and Caltrans can collaborate on the construction of that project.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Warren.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff?
Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Strong. And a couple of things, because of my conversation with Mitch Weiss, who's the new CEO of the California Transportation Commission, they seem to favor that under the bridge route. And I'm wondering if we've had any conversations with them on their interaction with Caltrans on that, among other things. I'm also concerned about a letter I received from one of our businesses in that area. Anyone?
We have not had any feedback officially on the undercrossing, but we do understand Caltrans is reviewing that right now. So that may be part of their comments back to us.
Okay, fine. Then the other thing, some of our businesses seem to be having trouble with break-ins and robberies and things like that. Are we planning any additional police protection, video surveillance, or anything to protect our businesses in the area of Black Oak from intrusion by some of the people who may not be quite so savory, who could potentially be in line to use the facility?
This is Darren, city planner. It sounds like, Councilman Strong, your question is related to surveillance, like on one of the light poles or similar that we're doing around town, or within and around the facility itself.
Well, I'm concerned. I've had communication from one of the major businesses over in the Black Oak area on break-ins and robberies from vehicles by the evidently they are think it's the homeless who are just hanging out and desperate for some kind of means of support, and they're afraid that this facility is going to attract more of them. So I'm wondering if we've reached out to them and if we're planning anything with our police department or anybody to give additional protection in that area until this thing gets rolling in a very legitimate, helpful way.
Councilman Strong, Julie Dolan back at the podium. So of course, our primary objective is to initiate homeless services so that would minimize the misbehavior and the disruptive behavior of people who really don't have the services readily available to them to change their behavior, improve their lot in life, and so on. So that's one issue, that's why we are going down this road, frankly, is to minimize that kind of behavior in our community and those issues. If your question is, what are we doing right now? That's not something that I have in my purview in terms of upping police support in that area. I don't know if Chief Lewis is still on the phone and can address that one at all, but certainly we are sympathetic to the fact that people experiencing homelessness occasionally create issues for our law enforcement. Again, if we're able to take on the Homeless Services Center and minimize that overall, then there are benefits from a staffing perspective and certainly from a business owner's perspective.
Yeah, well, because of the item on the agenda, Mr. Mayor, because of the item on the agenda, I wasn't really asking about now, although it would be nice to have our police department to do an outreach in that area and do something. Yes, thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
I have a question, sir. Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
this is Council Garcia. I was just wondering with the shuttle service, if there has been any thought of a different location. I know that Miss Julie is saying that they're used to the Riverside location. I know when the Mid-State Fair is here and they have the shuttle that goes and drops off people on that end of town. In other words, being on the other side of the freeway, like either at the Cuesta parking lot in the very far corner. I know that sometimes that was added to the route, just so that you're already on that side of the freeway. I know it's further for them to get to that location, but I was just wondering if we have considered or looked at other routes.
Excellent question, and I would say that we'd certainly be open to the route that makes the most sense. Anything that would require pedestrians to cross over, we probably would not want to embrace that. But your point is well taken, that when we do have the Mid-State Fair in session or other major events, that Riverside site is really less feasible. We would probably start there simply because the clients are accustomed to gathering there already, and then moving forward, try to find another site that first is not an imposition to any other business. That's been the beauty of that site, frankly, and that does not put the clients in any greater danger by having to cross a major street or highway or something like that.
Okay, thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, one more question, if I may? Yes.
Of course.
I'm wondering, maybe Julie can answer this, the contract with for the transportation services. Are we sure that Ride-On is not going to ask the Regional Transit Authority for supplementary money for this particular program, which they've done with some others?
We are not that far down the road, excuse the pun, in terms of working out a specific contract. Again, this is just in our preliminary phase as we're planning the programming for the Homeless Services Center, and with the understanding that working with Ride-On was successful with Paso Cares. Again, our Homeless Services Director, Jeff Almashot for Paso Robles, is currently investigating a variety of alternatives for the providing of the shuttle, just as we would do for other city projects, to make sure that we have an organization, a business that can provide this service reliably and at a competitive cost, most responsive bid, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Going once, going twice? Very good. Let's open this up to the public now. Again, first of all, folks, remember that number to call is going to be 888. We'll find the rest of it here in a minute. 867-1694. That's 888-867-1694. Call will be answered by a staff member, putting you until it's time for you to make your comment or ask your question. That being said, do we have anybody in the room who would like to come forward and make a comment?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Do we have anyone on the
I'm
phone?
sorry, Mr. Mayor. We do actually have one member of the public who'd like to speak.
Come forward, and we're happy to hear from you. Welcome.
You know, I've got kids that go to Cuesta College. I heard your thing over there. Is there going to be any rehabilitation, anything for these folks there? I mean, are these people just going there and getting a warm meal, a bed, and then just going out in the streets and doing whatever they want?
Sir, could you please state your name and address, please?
I'm sorry. Yes, my name is Fernando Diaz. I live here in Paso. Lived here a long time, and a little concerned with what's going on there.
So,
okay, so we have your question.
Yeah.
We'll answer all the public questions at one time. Did you have another question you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I mean, rehabilitation. I mean, these people, they go there. Like I said, they get free meals. I mean, you know, transportation is paid by the city, funded by us. Are they, I mean, is there any way these people can work? I mean, when they're there, can they pick up trash on the side of the road? I mean, I'm concerned about a lot of things when I hear this, you know.
Right. So your question is there anything beyond simple sheltering plan? Yeah, gotcha. Any other question?
No, I mean, yeah, there's way more, but let's start with those.
Okay. If you have other questions, we'd like to hear them now so we can get them all answered at one time.
No, that's good enough. That'll answer probably my biggest concerns.
Very good. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay.
Is there anyone else in the room who would like to comment?
No.
I'm hearing nothing. Okay. Do we have anyone on the telephone?
No, we do not.
Very good. We have written comments. Are we going to read those into the record now?
We did not receive any written comments to the city clerk mailbox.
Okay, so
Mr. Mayor, this is Mr. Frucci. We did get, as Councilmember Strong referred to, an email from Matt Messia, and I can read that to you if you would like.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
This was an email submitted yesterday at, actually today at 12:14 a.m., so very early this morning. Hello, City Council members. I'm writing to you my opposition to the homeless shelter next to the sewer treatment plant and the very negative impact it will have on many businesses in our area of town. It is hard to speak up against something that is needed in our city, but if I don't express myself to each of you, I would feel that I have failed myself and failed all of the businesses on 24th and Black Oak Drive. I have spoken to most of the businesses that are near the proposed shelter site, and no one is happy to have this located near 24th Street. We had not been contacted previously by the council or staff so we could share with you the impacts this might have on us. We can give you 101 reasons why the shelter location is a bad deal, but I know that it's too late to get it changed because the council and staff are in a rush to get something built, and the sewer plant seems like a good out-of-the-way location. But it is not, as the homeless have had a very negative impact on my family's business, with the crimes that many of them commit on my guests and our property over and over again. Thank you for your time, and I wish I could be there tonight to achieve a better outcome for our homeless efforts.
Thank you for reading that. I also have an email from Carol Fistig of Paso Robles. Do you have that?
Yes, and I believe these were added to the agenda packet, so my apologies. These came in as they normally would to various email addresses in the city.
we read that one. We should probably read Carol's too.
Okay. Realize that it is the city's need for a homeless shelter that is driving this general plan amendment, but feel that the cost of this small shelter and the small need it will fill is out of bounds and needs to be addressed in a way that utilizes the resources in the best possible manner. With so many needing help, certainly it should be possible to figure out a way that doesn't cost so much but helps more people.
Thank you very much. That's from Carol Kissick of Paso Robles. Okay, that rounds out our public comment. I'm going to bring it back to the council. We did have a question here about what rehab and other services might be associated with this center. In other words, what will make the center more than just a place for people to go and find a place to sleep and something to eat?
Hey, Julie Dolan back at the podium. Really looking at the name of the center, the First Step Homeless Services Center, and keeping in mind that we have collaborated with ECHO, El Camino Homeless Organization, who has been successfully addressing homelessness for quite some time now. It really is a concerted effort to link people experiencing homelessness to the resources that they require so that they will no longer be homeless. And we realize that this is a very complex issue, which practically, if not every city, is facing. So we intend to partner with other social services such as Transitions Mental Health, have substance abuse counseling. We will have volunteers. The question was asked if the participants themselves will assist in taking care of the center. We absolutely recognize the importance of that, from honing some job skills to actually taking some ownership over the center, or some pride of ownership, so that it has more of a sense of community. So we agree that offering a meal and a bed is nowhere near enough to significantly address homelessness, and we absolutely intend to offer much more than that in the way of social services.
And Julie, isn't it true, you had mentioned earlier about another round of grant funding coming through? Is it not our intention to try to earmark some of that money to increase the services to help people get out of homelessness?
Yes, the HAP grant is the next major grant coming down from the state. And organizations such as the City of Paso Robles are well positioned to be granted funds through the HAP grant, because we do have a plan underway and we are designing a building. And so they recognize, the state recognizes the need to assist us in sustaining this programming. So we are very optimistic that this will be a source of additional funding. We are, though, addressing homelessness seriously as a city. This is going to be a part of our ongoing budget, but we're doing everything we can to bring in additional funding. Again, the beauty of collaborating with ECHO is that ECHO is a nonprofit. ECHO has all kinds of networking throughout the entire county in terms of supporting their efforts for homeless services. And now they've extended their umbrella to include the First Step Homeless Services Center. So while we don't expect to be fully funded from grants and from donations, we certainly expect that to significantly reduce the burden on the city of Paso Robles.
And as I understand it, ECHO, obviously an organization with a great history in this area, has developed a very good success story as far as the intake and program policies, and actually are very effective in getting people out of homelessness into their own homes, making them independent again. They have a pretty good success rate at that.
Exactly, and now that they will have the opportunity to work with PASO for those that are more chronically homeless and in a more serious situation, we do really have a lot of confidence in our ability to pull people out and then offer further services down the line, as the ECHO shelter has provided for many years now.
Thank you. Any other council comments?
Yeah, Steve, we have a speaker coming up, but I'd just like to say something before Jeff starts. For the gentleman in the audience, ECHO had a town hall meeting for us about, 3 or 4 weeks ago here. And it's very interesting, and they tell you the whole process of what they do with the ECHO shelter and the Atascadero and how we're going to integrate our shelter with them. And it's very educational, and I highly recommend. We'll be having more meetings. So if you have some concerns or interest in it, I'd attend, because everybody learned a great deal from that meeting. So Go ahead,
Jeff
Jeff.
Almashot with
Thank you.
ECHO, the Homeless Services Director for Paso Robles. The one thing I wanted to address was the success rate. ECHO has been around for 20 years, and normally the success rate of getting people moved on to successful housing is about 10%, and that is national. That is seen as very good. ECHO actually has a record of 60% getting people moved into successful housing and keeping them in that housing.
Excellent. Appreciate that report. Any other council comments?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Hammond, I think for me, one thing that was really motivating me about this facility was that with regarding, Sacramento and the way they're handling us with the homeless situation and the riverbed, that we are not allowed to have them leave the riverbed unless we have another facility for them to go to. That's key for most people to understand, that we've got to have this facility. My only question, again, is I want to make sure from staff is that there is no other location that we could put this that would be easier to get to. And this is my main reservation about this project, is that the location is not the best, but we have a solution. I just want to make sure that we've exhausted all other city properties that we could possibly put this location. That'd be a question for staff.
Good question. Yeah, does staff have a response to that?
We really did investigate any possible property that the city already owned. Would we be in a position to purchase property somewhere? And time again, we just landed back on this piece of property. We acknowledge that it absolutely has challenges from a pedestrian standpoint, and yet we are addressing those challenges, and we feel that we have some good strategies. It needs to be a balance between where are the clients already. That's the reality of this. And where are we likely to have the least amount of negative impact on others who might be concerned about these kinds of services? So we do share your concern, Councilman Hammond, but we really did investigate a variety of options and just kept landing back here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm confident talking with Ty and the police department about once this is done, that we will have a tool, in other words, the public perception is that we want to keep our riverbed clean and free of this kind of affair. So I think once we get this built and we have a place for them to go and our department's behind enforcing that law now, that's a key motivation for me. So thank you.
So Steve Gregory.
Mr. Gregory.
I'd like to make a motion.
We have 4 actions to take from this item.
Oh, I thought we were still in discussion.
Go ahead, Fred.
Go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Mayor, this is Councilman Strong, and I think Julie made some very good points. There are probably many other places we could put a shelter. It has enough space, but the impacts would probably be even more severe than in this particular location from the point of view of the surrounding businesses and or homes. So this has the ability to do the service, and it has the ability to house the facility. So we could even use a larger facility in that location and still accomplish it. So I don't think we should look anywhere else. I also noticed that we have people texting in that are concerned that we're talking about the homeless when we should only be talking about the pandemic. And I would remind the public that we have business to take care of that's also very critical to many of our people in this community that the city council has to take care of and has to pay attention to. And we are doing everything we can on the pandemic. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Fred. And I appreciate the people who are commenting online. In keeping with the way the agenda and the way business is dedicated, so we have gone through that item, and we invited people to comment both in person, on telephone, and writing. And I don't want to get off on a rabbit trail on comments that are made online during the meeting unless it's part of the actual public comment process. But I do appreciate the people who are writing in. I appreciate your concerns, and we will continue to reiterate our concerns and our actions regarding the pandemic. We'll have more comment about that at the end of the meeting. Is there any further comment or discussion about this agenda item?
This is Steve Gregory. Ready to make a motion?
We have 4 items in front of us. If you're ready, I am.
I move to approve Resolution 20XXX, A, certifying the project's mitigated negative declaration.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Hammond. Any further discussion on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Gregory?
Aye.
Councilman Hammond?
Aye.
Councilman Strong?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garcia?
Aye.
Mayor Steve Martin?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
My second motion is to approve Resolution 20XXX, B, for the general plan amendment, GPA 19003, to change the general plan land use map for APNs 008 051 026, 008 051 004, 008 051 006, 008 051 002 from commercial services zoning to public facility zoning.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Hammond. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Gregory?
Aye.
Councilman Hammond?
Aye.
Councilman Strong?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garcia?
Aye.
Mayor Steve Martin?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Mr. Gregory?
I'd like to make a motion to introduce the first reading by title only, an ordinance amending the zoning code and zoning map consistent with the general plan amendment.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Gregory, seconded by Councilwoman Garcia. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Gregory?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garcia?
Aye.
Councilman Strong?
Aye.
Councilman Hammond?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
And my final motion is to approve Resolution 20XXXC for conditional use permit 19-16 and PD 19-13, subject to conditions of approval and findings.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Gregory, seconded by Councilwoman Garcia. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Gregory?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garcia?
Aye.
Councilman Strong?
Aye.
Councilman Hammond?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. We move on. If I am correct, items 16 and 17 have been deferred for tonight. We proceed to item number 18, and as I did at our last meeting, I have to recuse myself on this for a potential conflict of interest. If it's satisfactory with the city attorney, I will mute my phone and turn away. If not, I will simply hang up and call back. Your call.
Okay.
You can mute your phone. That's fine. Thank you.
So this is Mayor Pro Tem Steve Gregory. I'm going to request a 5-minute break and we'll get to this item. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Mayor Pro Tem Steve Gregory speaking. And before we start this item, it's item number 18 on the agenda for commencing the Prop 218 process for solid waste collection rates. I want to repeat to the residents again, you can call 888-867-1694 if you'd like to make a phone call and participate in discussion on this project. At this time, we'll go ahead and open up this item with our presentation by our Public Works Director, Mr. Dick McKinley.
This process. So Paso Robles Waste and Recycle is our solid waste franchise provider. That means they're a local private company that provides the service through agreement with the city as opposed to having city staff and city equipment provide the service. They've been doing it since 1993. They do a great job. I could tell you as staff that we receive one, maybe two issue calls a year for the service of 10,000 plus accounts every week, right? So it's a well-provided service in the community. They are here to us. They sent us a letter in June. So there's a process built into the franchise agreement when they want to talk to us about rates. So they sent us a letter in June that said they wanted to commence the rate setting process. They commissioned and paid for an objective third-party rate study that's called for in the franchise agreement. They completed an audit that audits for 6 or 7 specific items that are also laid out in the franchise agreement. They have come to us with that. There's some other steps, but they've come to us with that to ask us to commence the Prop 218 process. For the listening audience, Prop 218 was voted on by the voters, and it requires before taxes or certain fees can be raised that the public gets notified of that possibility through written notices that if you take this action tonight would be mailed out to all of the customers out there, each and every one of those accounts, that they have at least a 45-day period to protest against that if they don't agree with that. There also at the end of that time is a public hearing where they can come to the public hearing and speak for or against. And if all of the protests we receive and all of the people speaking against at the public hearing, by the end of the public hearing, is 50% plus one of the total out there, then that would stop the rate process from going forward, all right? Just I wanted the public to understand what that process is. So the reason for the request is that two things really for them. The first is, and the biggest is, the recycling market. So for years and years and years and years, we've collected recyclables, and those materials were processed and largely shipped to China. China has massive recycling process plants to turn those things back into more raw materials that can be used by industry and made into products again. So about a year or so ago, China took a look at that and decided that they had enough recyclable materials from their own country to feed all of their plants. And so they told the rest of the world, we're not taking your recyclables anymore. So all across the world, all across our country in particular, recyclables have been very hard to get processed, very hard to turn back into raw materials. And so what for Paso Robles Waste and Recycle under prior systems was a money maker for them. It made on the average $14 per ton of recycled materials, which was used to hold down customer rates, right? That was part of the equation in the prior rate studies that helped keep the rates from going up. Now it's a loss of $68 per ton. That's a swing of $82 on each and every ton of recyclable materials that they process. All of us recycle and all of us continue to have to recycle. In other words, there's not an option for us under California state law. So we have to keep recycling. And so right now that's causing the company to lose $82 difference from what they used to get per ton of recycling that they're required to process. So the other thing that helps drive their rates is the very tight labor market we have here in Paso Robles. It's difficult for them to get drivers and keep drivers, and so their costs of doing that, their costs for hourly rates and things like that have gone up beyond what they anticipated 5 years ago, the last time we looked at rates in 2015. So other communities have been dealing with this same thing. Almost every community in the county has had to adjust their rates to deal at least with the recycling and some with labor. Los Osos raised their rates by 25.31%. Cambria raised them by the same amount, 25.31%. Atascadero raised their rates 18.2%, and that's just for the smallest 32-gallon can. So it would be more than that on the larger cans, and others have done that. So everyone, and really everyone across the country is dealing with this same issue for the same reasons. So we came to you, so Paso Robles Waste and Recycle, the company that serves us, has done quite a few things to try to help deal with the costs. They've gone to in-house maintenance of their fleet. They run their fleet on compressed natural gas through their own systems. They have computerized assisted route scheduling. Their staff are all cross-trained. They have a reclaimed water system to help hold down their costs. So they've done things that a responsible business would do when facing a tough financial market. And so they are currently operating at a loss. It can be a pretty significant loss because of the money that they're losing on recycling that was built into their budget as if it was going to help offset costs, is now creating a giant cost for them. And so that's thus the request for us to examine the rates. They have been providing, just as an additional piece of information, they have been providing 2 general benefit services to the community for a while now. They are sweeping contractors, so they do all the street sweeping in the community and picking up the trash and the little fine materials that pollute waterways and things that can become air pollution in the community. So they do that service for us. And then the other service, which is really important, is they empty every day all the garbage cans in each of the parks and all the garbage cans in the downtown. So one of the things that you'll be asked to consider as you look at possible rate increases is to have those general benefit things built into the rates. And so, and I'll come back to that in a minute. So so we brought this item to the council at the last meeting 2 weeks ago on March 3rd. Council discussed it. We provided a bunch of the same information, and the council asked us to look at coming back with different options for how the percentages go to sort of flatten them out over time, and to see if that was possible, to see about the timing between the rates. Would they be once every 6 months until it was done? Would it be once a year? Would it be once a year in July, once a year in January? Look at options like that. Look at, are there any other efficiencies or something else that could be done, and whether that we would look at any other adjustments to language in the franchise agreement that would be mutually beneficial to us. And so we have been working on that. Where we're at now is to come back to you with the results of some of that, and in your packet you have options. And one of the options for you tonight is not to vote on rates, but to vote on, if you decide to, is to vote on a set of timing and rates that you would like the ratepayers to consider through the Prop 218 process, that we would send out the notices to them based on the package you pick or whatever you tell us to do, and to commence that 45-day review process. And that would be a written notice to all of those customers. And there's samples in your packet of what those notices might look like. So there's package A, which was the original one that came from the rate increase. It would start with a 14.3% the first year. That's a lot to take out. So package B evens that out to a 8.8%, 8.78%, and then eases off. And then there's one that's 8.8% and then 12.8% and then 9. That one ends up being a higher cost overall because it spreads the rate increases out over a lot longer period of time. So it's harder for the company to make up for their losses. When it takes a lot longer, then it costs more to do that. So the staff recommendation to you is actually package B, which is 8.8% in July of 2020, 8.78% in January of 2021. So all of these three packages have, in the second year, have 2.68% included in that second year that is for the general benefit services, for the sweeping and the trash. So it is possible for us to not include those in that second year and either include them in the third or don't include them at all. But that still leaves people paying for those services irrespective of how they pay for other trash services in the community. So staff is recommending that be included, that we not include them in that first year to soften it and include them in the second years. You could ask us to move that to the third year or take it out entirely if you were interested in amending the packages. We're giving you some options to discuss and to decide what you want to do. So all of the packages go for 3 years worth of defined percentages, and then all of them in the last 2 years are recommended to just have a regular CPI, consumer price index type of an adjustment to rates. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Does the council have any questions?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Councilman Hammond. Dick, when was the last increase our hauler had?
So they had an increase in 2015 that went for 5 years. So the last increase is just now recently gone into place. Those sets of rates, and before that had been 8 years with no increase prior to 2015. Those rates were set in assuming that the recycle business was going to continue to be what it was, and assuming that the local labor market was going to be stable and predictable.
Mm-hmm. And then the process, explain a little bit about the 218 process. So are the people who are going to vote essentially on this or have a say in it, are those all ratepayers? In other words, commercial and residential customers, or all residents of Paso Robles? How does that?
So we do commercial and residential customers, and then we meld that database that we get from the company with any other property owners who might not be a customer in some way, so that everybody for sure gets contacted.
So even though you may not have waste hauling service, you still get the vote?
So the reason we do the property owners is because there may be a tenant who doesn't pay for the service and the property owner does. Okay. And so that way, no matter what, we err on the side of making sure that everyone who should have a say has a say.
And then scenario in that.
Councilmember Hammond, if I could just clarify on that. So it's not the ratepayers don't have a vote, it's a majority protest process. So it's one protest per parcel. So because it's a property related fee, it's based on the parcel. And so if there's a majority protest, then the council cannot impose the rate increase.
So what happens if we do have a majority protest? What's that scenario like after that?
So it means that the proposition that was before the ratepayers doesn't pass, so that you can't put it in place. You could go back and tell the franchise holder, Paso Robles Waste Recycle, start again. So so you could start over again and say, okay, come back to us with some different package that we could be back doing this kind of a thing again. So
the three packages that I see here that we need to discuss, there's package A, B, and C. One's 24.16%. The next year is going to be, or the next package is 25.45. And then the last package is 33, almost 34% increase.
Right. So the longer before the rate increases take effect, the more stretched out they are, the greater the total thing, because they, if you do the 14.3 right up front, then they're getting revenues and they're getting stabilized faster. So that you don't need as much in the second and third year. When you go really, easier in the first years and stretch out longer and longer for those later increases, they have to be more in order to make the company whole.
And tonight, our job then is to propose that to the ratepayers, which package we want them to.
That's, yeah. And any other changes that you'd want to propose, but certainly, yeah. And I would say that in honor of what we're trying to do to comply with COVID-19 and that the folks from Paso Robles Waste and Recycle are listening. And so if you have questions that I'm unable to answer, they would call in.
Who's responsible for getting the ballot, if you would, to the ratepayers?
So actually, the city does that through our utility billing group. We get the customer list from them. We meld it with the property owner list, and then we print and mail them out. And then we send a bill to the franchise holder because they ultimately pay those costs. So we have to do it because we're the utility billing provider, but they pay us back for the costs.
Got it. Thank you.
And so it's a notice that is mailed. We don't send a ballot per se. Then we provide the information as to if they want to submit a protest against the rates, then they can do so, just like we would with the water or sewer rates. It's the same process.
And we have draft copies of what those notices would look like. They tell them when the public hearing is. They tell them how to file a protest. All that stuff is on the notice. They tell them what the rate increase percentages would be, what they'd look like on standard residential size and commercial size services, and in actual dollars in each of the years. So that's all included in that, and a package A and a package B and a package C of that notice is included in your packet.
So Fred, Councilwoman Garcia was first. So if you could just hold your thought for a moment.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Fred. Council Garcia here. I was looking at the packet here, and it says the Atascadero rates went up May of 19 for 18.2%. And if we're saying that it's going to be difficult for Paso Waste to be able to handle things because of the recycling, how is Atascadero able to accomplish that and still keep the rates lower, the percentage lower?
So their rates can be that low because they did it all up front. They just bit the bullet, as it were, and had a big rating bump right off the bat. So where this one says 14.3 and 6.8, if you just said, okay, do 20% the first year, then you'd be mostly done.
Okay.
So it's part of what we're looking at and doing these other packages is trying to soften the impact on the customers to try to make things better for our ratepayers in the community by softening the transition.
Any other questions, Councilman Garcia? Okay. Fred, your turn.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem. I got a question today that it relates to this, but not directly. Some people are wondering why we're not going out to bid, and I had to explain that we're not giving the franchise with this action. We are setting rates for an existing franchise. Could we at least let our listeners and those who read this know how long this current contract is still running with our current provider?
Certainly, our current franchise agreement expires in 2027.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council this time?
No.
Okay, at this time we'll open up to the public. If anybody would like to speak to this matter, podium. Seeing none at the podium, we do have a caller on the line. So when the caller does come online, can the caller hear me yet? Or when you, okay. So we're answering the call to the caller at this point. If you could please give us your name and address, and please feel free to speak.
Hi, my name is Dan Blackburn. I've lived on Olive Street in this city for 25 years now. I'd like to talk a little bit about this garbage rate. I know someone just did mention the bidding process, but since I read about this in the Paso Robles press, I noticed that the Paso Robles Waste Disposal is proposing a rate increase through 2027, although their current contract, I think, ends in 2022. So I've been informed now, of course, that the garbage contract hasn't been put out to bid since at least 1993, and maybe never. Paso Robles Waste Disposal, despite the fact that they may be doing a good job or an adequate job, they've had a stranglehold on this city's garbage contract, just an undeniable monopoly. So I'm wondering, how can we as ratepayers know if this 21.6% rate increase over the next 6 months is really warranted, without what is essentially a one-pony show? So I guess I'm calling to ask, wouldn't the competitive bid process confirm that these rates are justified? I know there's a large capital investment necessary to provide this kind of public service. That's what justifies the long-term contracts. And I'm also pretty certain that when the PRWD started hauling garbage for the city many years back, there probably weren't too many companies capable of doing the job. But I doubt that's the case today. But it seems to me that putting out this very large contract to bid periodically will help ensure that residents and businesses are getting the best service and the biggest bang for their garbage buck. That's what I got to say. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackburn. Do we have any other calls at this time? Okay, we'll bring that back to our staff or Mr. McKinley to answer that question.
So a couple of questions. So the franchise agreement expires in 2027. The rates go to 2024, not to 2027. And if it was the council intention, if they wanted to have us go out and look at other alternatives for contract providers, probably in 2025 or 2026, so well before the expiration of this franchise agreement, then you would direct your staff to begin that process. Because as Mr. Blackburn pointed out, there's a lot of equipment and a lot of things to gear up to be able to take on a service of this size and be able to appropriately and successfully do that. So, if you wanted to do that, there's a few more years before you do that, but somewhere around 25 or 26, summer of 2025 or something like that would be probably the time that you direct staff to begin it. It's a lengthy, involved process to do something this big. We're not asking someone to fix a block of sidewalks, right? It's a long-term service. So, but that certainly is an option for you to consider as we get closer to that time.
So while I have the mic, Mr. McKinley, I have a question. So I believe that their contract has been renewed once or twice since they started as our contractor. Is that true? Do you know the dates?
That's correct,
okay.
yeah.
And then the person on the telephone call, the rates that we're considering tonight are a little different. Could you just repeat the rates for the three different scenarios, please?
Right. So the package A rates would be 14.3% that would start July 1st of 2020, 6.18% that would start January 1st of 2021, 2.3% in January 1st of 2022, then a CPI increase in January 1st of 2023, and a CPI increase of January 1st of 2024. Package B is 8.8% July 1st, 2020, 8.78% January 1st, 2021, and 6% January 1st of 2022. And then again with 2 years of CPI increases January 23 and January 24. Package C is 8.8% again on July 1st, 2020, then 12.8% on July 1st of 2021. So 6 months later than the others, 9.13% on July 1st, 2022, and then CPI increases July 1st, 2023 and July 1st, 2024.
And then just for clarification for the public, you mentioned the rate increase for Atascadero of 18%, but that was just on one of their
That's on
size.
that's on a 32-gallon can. So
they have the option to change other prices.
So typically rates go up based on the size of the container. So a 2-yard dumpster for a business instead of a 1-yard dumpster, if it's empty once a week, is more because when they get to the landfill or when they're processing the recyclables, it's based on tonnage. It's based on the weight. And so, my family, we have 5 people at our house. We use a 60-gallon can. And so our rate for a 60-gallon can is higher than the rate for a 40-gallon can or a 20-gallon can in the Paso Robles Waste and Recycle. Actually, the name of the company is Paso Robles Waste and Recycle that provides our service.
Thank you. So
can I say one more thing on the Prop 218 process? Just so we're really clear, the rate package that you vote on for us to send out to the ratepayers and property owners to consider becomes the highest rate that you could implement. You could decide in May 19th, for example, to do rates that are lower than that, but you can't decide on May 19th to do rates that are higher than that without starting the process over again. I just wanted to be clear on that piece. I skipped that.
So I have a technical question about that process. So if we're going along and we select one of these and 2 years into the process, we say, can you please analyze this before the next increase to see if we're doing okay? Is that what we do, or how does that work?
So the franchise agreement is largely designed for the franchise provider, the service provider, to initiate the rate-making process. I don't think it says that we can't initiate the rate-making process, but in all my experience, it's usually the franchisee who says, hey, we need to look at rates.
So we leave it up to them to come and let us know to lower the rate?
Well, we have a contractual relationship with them, and we could certainly sit down and have conversations. We're also going through right now the language of the franchise agreement. That's one of the things you asked us to do. So while the public is going through this process, we'll be working with them on the franchise agreement language issues and some things like that. So we could discuss changing that part of the franchise agreement to let either party initiate a rate-making process.
So at this time, go ahead, Council.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Kimberly. So I was just going to note on that piece that the Prop 218 implementing legislation does require for those increases, that the maximum increases that Mr. McKinley noted, we do have to come back to you, with a notice or a reminder to customers at least 30 days before. So that also gives an opportunity to take a look. Do we need to take the CPI increase, have CPI increased? So there is opportunities in that process as well.
Thank you. Okay, so other council comments for Councilman Hammond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. I was just going to make a comment that I do sit on the integrated waste management for the county for our city, and we have seen exactly what Mr. McKinley's been saying, that with the fact that the waste stream for recyclables have changed so significantly, these rate holders can't really make it anymore. We're seeing a lot of issues with that. And in particular, I also see testimony and documentation from a CPA, which went over their books and verified essentially that they are in trouble with regard to revenue. So just want to make those comments, and then I guess we can deliberate.
Okay. Councilwoman Garcia, any comments or questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
And Fred, any more comments or questions from you?
Well, we've had the public speak, all right?
Yes,
so we're back.
we're back to council. Yeah.
The only thing I would say is, I think from our point of view of our ratepayers, especially right now, because of what we're going through with the pandemic and how it's affecting the wages and the stream, that I would favor package B. I think package A would be rather draconian right now. So I would favor a motion to adopt package B.
So are you making a motion, sir?
Well, let's discuss this.
Okay, more discussion. More discussion. Hold on, Fred.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to mention the fact that package A actually, in the end, is cheaper for ratepayers than it is for B, albeit it's like 1 1/3% difference. But and as the way I understand it, the rate hauler needs this help now, not later. I didn't really appreciate that much of an increase either in one hit, but on the other hand, with what's going on with the whole industry right now, I think it'd be more in order, and I'm wondering if that 1.3% is really going to be that much savings overall. But whatever you guys think. So,
Maria, any more comments? Go ahead, Fred.
But my argument is this, that people are suffering right now with all the extra expenses of trying to deal with all the different requirements we have dealing with the current situation. And to take that big a hit as of July 1 is going to be more disaster for them than taking a smaller hit this July 1 and taking a little bigger one a year from now. All right, actually, no, not a year, 9 months from now on the 1st of 2021.
Right.
So that's why I favor package B. I realize it's about a little more than 1% less overall, but it spreads it out, I think, much more evenly over a period of a couple of years.
And I would tend to agree.
Mayor Pro Tem Gregory, this is Tom Pucci. May I say something, sir?
Yes, of course.
I just want to make sure everybody understands the numbers. The 3 packages over the entire 5-year period raise exactly the same total dollars. They generate the same total dollars. It's just the timing of it. So as Mr. Strong says, package B starts with a lower amount and as a result has to have higher amounts in the out years. And so when you look at it on a compounding basis, at the end of the 5-year period, the rates are higher. So it'd be a higher starting point for the subsequent 5-year period, but the total amount of money generated during the 5 years is exactly the same for all 3 packages.
So it's just a matter of how it's presented to the ratepayers and how it comes in, but it all ends up with the same amount.
That's correct.
Does the council understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
I was going to mention again, package B would be better for ratepayers to approve, obviously.
Yeah, I agree.
If they have a pushback on this, maybe B might be the better way to go.
Right.
So, Fred, any comment or?
No, Mr. Mayor, if it's appropriate, I would make a motion that we begin the process for the Prop 218 process with suggestion of the adoption of package B.
So just for clarification, to Mr. Frucci, do you want us to read the recommendation verbatim in our package for the motion?
Well, Mr. Councilmember Strong has gone to what appears in your agenda as recommendation 2, which is to approve a resolution directing the staff and Paso Waste to commence the 218 process for package B. But I think it's worthwhile making sure that everybody in the listening audience knows that then would result in a maximum possible increase of up to 8.8% on July 1st, 2020, 8.78% on January 1st, 2021, and a maximum possible increase of 6% on January 1st, 2022, with 2 following year rate increases or decreases, depending upon what happens to the Consumer Price Index on January 1st, 2023 and January 1st, 2024.
Correct. That's my motion.
Very fast of you, Fred. So is there a second?
Second.
So there's a first and a second for option 2 for approving package B for the 218 process. Any other questions or comments?
We'll have a roll call vote.
Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Gregory.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye. And can somebody notify the mayor to come back in?
There is one more motion, Your Honor.
Okay.
And we do need to announce that was a 4-0-1 vote. 4 ayes, no opposes, and 1 member recusing himself.
And is there any other?
What's the second motion we need?
The second motion is shown on the screen in your packet, direct staff and Paso. So this is what is recommended for that second motion. Direct staff and Paso Robles Waste and Recycling to examine possible efficiencies and a reduction in current non-mandated service levels, reporting back to council with all conclusions and recommendations. So in other words, for us to keep working with them on things we might be able to do.
And Fred, would you like to make that motion?
Yes, and doesn't that motion say, and to approve Resolution 20XXS, which directs staff and Paso Robles Waste Recycling to commence the 218 process for solid waste collection services and selects the proposed rates increases summarized in Package B, scheduling proposed increases of up to 8.8% on 7/1/20, 8.78% on 1/1/21, and 6% on 1/1/22, as well as rate changes matching the change in Consumer Price Index on 1/1/23 and 1/1/24.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first by Councilman Strong, second by Councilman Hammond. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Okay, Councilman Strong.
Aye.
Councilman Hammond.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Gregory.
Aye.
Councilwoman Garcia.
Aye.
All right, that concludes item 18, and if someone could find Mr. Martin, we'll get back to our meeting with this.
And Mayor Pro Tem, while someone is doing that, we are required to announce the results of that vote. That vote was also a 4-0-1 vote, with 4 members voting in favor, none in opposition, and 1 member having recused himself.
So noted. Thank you. Okay, Mayor Martin, this is Mayor Pro Tem, and I'm worn out. Can you take over?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, very good. So we move on now to our last item, which is number 19, current council committee activities and reports. How about if we start off with Councilwoman Garcia?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I attended the library meeting on the 12th, and I also attended the Hispanic Business Association meeting on the 12th. I was asked to speak at the North County Women's Connection Luncheon on the 13th. And I attended the crab feed for the Rotary Sunrise on Saturday. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory.
So I'm going to keep my comments to the local situation with our coronavirus issues. So I'm very concerned about I'm happy to see all the activity on protecting our citizens and following the protocol. But I'm very concerned about our employees and our small businesses in our town. This is going to really hurt a lot of lives because several people are being laid off. And I have a request of the council to consider an idea. Because we're such a, recreational and tourist economy here, when they closed the wineries down, they basically turned off the tap. everybody canceled out of their hotel rooms and vacation rentals. Restaurants went empty. And so I have an idea, and the Wine Alliance came up with a really good program of protocol to follow the protocol of the virus protocol. And my suggestion is for us to write a letter to the governor of California to allow the wineries to reopen on an appointment by appointment only basis to the tasting rooms. This gives them the ability to continue in their excelled use of their protocol to protect the customers. It's a more intimate and gracious way to deal with people. And it allows our wineries, who represent almost $1 billion of income for our community every year. And in their absence, it is significantly curtailing our income as a community. This would be a way for them to get some of that back, bring some of the people back to town to fill the hotels and put a few more seats in the restaurants, or go back to even the breweries could do the same thing. But I think we need to do something, say something to the governor, because no fault to the governor, he's trying to protect our public. But at the same time, you can't destroy a community and an economy so thoroughly like this. We need to do something to help. And if we could get a quarter or 20% of the customers back through coming through a tasting room process by appointment only, and get the governor to approve that, it wouldn't only help our community, it would help Santa Barbara County, the whole county of San Luis Obispo. I've spoken to Supervisor Pajong about it. It even helped Napa County. At least we have some opportunity to get some sales and get some people to come back. That's why they're coming here. We have a lot of beautiful things in our city, but because of the virus, the coronavirus, we're having to restrict a lot of those activities. So I'm not asking for any special events, just a consideration of writing a letter to do it by appointment basis at the wineries and breweries. So that's my request.
I would be willing to work with Councilman Gregory and with the representatives from our Wine Alliance to draft such a letter so that we could mitigate the negative impacts of the current restrictions while at the same time protecting public health.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Yes, that sounds great.
Anybody? Okay, so we got that. I think
that makes it unanimous.
So
thank you, Fred.
So I guess we can't make the motion at this point, but can we have staff work on a letter to circulate to us, Tom?
Sorry, I had to get out of mute. It'd actually be preferable if the mayor and the mayor pro tem drafted the letter. Otherwise, it is direction to staff.
Yep.
And unless you want us to just do it as a sense of the council, it would require a motion.
I'm sure we'll do it. The mayor and mayor pro tem will do it together. It'll be fine. And I would also want to
mention sense of the staff, I think.
Yep. I also like to mention something else and let the community know that on behalf of myself and the entire council, that we really care about all our employees and the people in our town, and we're going to do everything we can to get back online. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Mr. Hammond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I went to the senior advisory. It was the only major meeting in between. I also report out that I went to former Assemblyman and Supervisor for San Luis Obispo County, Cacho Asajian's funeral. Very well attended. He was a great man, and again, it was a good send-off for him and his family. Just want to report out on that. The other question I was going to have was for maybe Councilman Gregory and about his family, restaurant business. How are they doing? How are you doing? I mean, what's the feel downtown right now with the restaurants?
Well, I'm going to speak on behalf of several restaurants because everybody is talking downtown. Multiple restaurants have just closed their doors for several reasons. But what we've done in our own protocol, the protocol presented by the state of California or by the county, I can't remember who did it, but we've gone to mostly takeout meals, and we still have about 50% of the restaurant available for people to sit and enjoy their meals. And I think it's really important as a community, and I've talked to other restaurateurs about this in the restaurants in town, is that people regularly eat and depend on our restaurants. We're like a daily eatery, like like Joe's Place and One Niner Diner and Basil, and everybody's feeling the same thing, that we feel like we're all trying to do the best we can. We really want to preserve our employees. We've been here for 22 years. We have 2 employees almost 20 years on our staff. We don't want to lose our employees. And so we're doing everything we can. We're stopping our salaries ourselves. The partners aren't taking any salaries. We're cutting our time with operation, and we're doing everything we can to survive. We're a little more fortunate than some of the others. Some people will not make a 30-day layoff on their business. If they can't get back in 30 days, they're going to go out of business. And we're starting to see that recognition in Washington, but by the time it gets here, it's going to be too late for their help. And I think that we need to take action in every way we can to help our businesses in town. A lot of businesses are not being affected, which is great, like construction, but when it comes to retail, restaurants, the bars, they're all part of our community, and we have to do something to try to help them.
That's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm sorry, this is Steve.
Yes.
I also, at the end of the evening, I'd like to retire the evening or adjourn the evening in the honor of Kachu Akashian. So
I think that's appropriate. Thank you. Fred, I'm going to give you the honor of going last because this ties in with the conversation we just had and something you referenced earlier in the meeting. Since we are streaming the meetings, we have the opportunity, at least when you're sitting at home as I am, of seeing the comments from people who are viewing the meeting. We had about 38 people on and off watching or listening to the meeting and watching the presentation tonight, which is great. We had 2 or 3 that apparently missed the emergency resolution at the beginning regarding the pandemic and all the conversation we went through there. Their specific concerns are the guidelines regarding restaurants and bars and whatnot. And so I quick went to the county public health site, which of course anyone can do. And I'd like to read the specific information these folks are concerned about right now. And I'm reading now from the county public health site. This is a public health recommendation and not an enforceable order at this time. CDPH, County Department of Public Health guidance, states that bars, wineries, breweries, and pubs should be closed, and that restaurants should be closed for in-restaurant seated dining and should be open only to drive-through or other pickup or delivery options. Grocery stores and charitable food distribution sites should remain fully open and operational. As with other settings, grocery stores should ensure that social distancing of 6 feet per person for non-family members is maintained and make clear that family members can participate in activities together, stand in line together, etc., and that limiting the number of customers at any given time as necessary to reduce outdoor or indoor crowding and lines to meet social distancing guidance. Farmers markets should space booths accordingly to increase social distancing among patrons in line and walking about the market. It says, please see the complete CDPH guidance. There is a link to that for additional details and exceptions. So as it says at the top of this, this is a public health recommendation, not enforceable at this time. I spoke with the county public health officer today. He said, no, they are not going to go out and be inspecting people to make sure they shut down. I'm sure they don't have the resources to do that anyway. But she also said, this could become enforceable at any time. So for the folks that were listening in, either missed information or felt that they didn't get the full information they needed, that is the full information. It comes from County Public Health, and that's where we stand right now. So, Brad, why don't you go ahead and make your comments, and I'll finish up, and we'll let Steve close the meeting with his dedication.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, because I was going to do some of what you just did, so that's great. So I'll just report on my activities, which were rather extensive, because immediately following our meeting our last meeting, the next day I chaired the meeting of the Regional Transit Authority, and we dealt with a number of issues which almost have become moot as this has moved forward, because we have lost approximately 24 of our drivers due to age and the recommendations that they stay at home. So the RTA is now on a Saturday schedule only rather than the regular Monday through Friday schedule, because we don't have enough drivers to drive the buses. I then attended that afternoon the Youth Council meeting, and that was very interesting, and a lot of the discussion was about what they were going to present tonight. which has been deferred. So they will be back to talk to us about vaping and a vaping ordinance for our city, probably at our next meeting, if we're anywhere back to normal by then. Then, a few days later, I flew to Washington, D.C. for the National League of Cities conference. And at that one, I was able to host a meeting of the vice presidents of the 7 major railroads of the United States, where we talked very specifically about our project here in Paso Robles with Wes Lujan, who is Assistant Vice President of External Relations for Union Pacific, and as well as some of the other railroads on different things that affect us up and down the line here for the Surfliner and Amtrak. I also spent some time with the Assistant Secretary of Governmental Affairs to the United States Department of Transportation and left him with a package on a number of our transportation issues here in our area that affect Paso Robles, specifically Highways 101 and Highway 46 East. Also, I have had delivered to you, I hope, my written comments on some of those meetings and on the National League of Cities thing. At least I delivered it to City Hall yesterday in hopes that it would be sent to you. I don't know if you got it. If not, I'm sure you'll get it very soon, so I don't want to take up too much time. But we did hear from a former Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. We heard from Nancy Pelosi. We heard from 3 of the candidates for President of the United States. And it was interesting because everybody is very much interested in a skilled workforce and more emphasis on education that is other than just college graduate, but doing some of the stuff that we need done on a day-to-day basis. And we also heard about the census, on how important it is that our people fill out their census forms. They go online and do what is recommended, because that is going to greatly affect how much federal funding that the city gets for our various programs and how much money we get for our roads and streets and a lot of other things that we do need here and we don't have the power to do on our own without getting money from the state and federal government. Frequently, a lot of the money coming to us from the state is actually through the state from the federal government. They are moving forward on legislation and transportation, and we heard that from our speakers. They're looking for a local control of that and a $750 billion package, and that legislation is moving forward. We'll see if the current bipartisanship actually continues and does that. We also heard from Dr. Wolf of the of our National Health Service on the COVID-19 and its new adaptation, and with a reminder that the incubation is from 2 to 14 days, so it's not like the regular flu at all. And at that time, they reported the statistics regarding it. But they mentioned that the United States is staffing over 50 countries to learn and help react to the threat. And they are working worldwide in order to try to get the best possible help for the citizens of the United States. And that pretty well concludes my activities thus far.
Thank you, Councilman Strong. Before I wind things up here, I just want to talk to the people in the community that are listening in right now and let them know that myself and the City Council are really trying very hard to thread the needle when it comes to our activities in public right now. We know that we have a responsibility, and we're happy to take it on to make sure that everyone is informed completely about this pandemic, and that we're there to take care of business in the city as we were elected to do. At this time, we want to make sure that we aren't foolish and that we are truly modeling the type of behavior we think is necessary to the general public so we can slow down this disease. So you may see us at some things, not see us at other things, but we're just trying to thread that needle and do the best job possible with our public appearances. That being said, some of the places I've appeared over the last week or two, Chamber of Commerce Chairman Circle Luncheon, the Twin Cities Community Hospital Group brought together a meeting of myself, physicians, Mr. Cunningham, to give us an update on the COVID-19 situation. We The mayors of San Luis Obispo County have initiated a daily conference call so they can share amongst ourselves what's happening in our cities and our best practices. Likewise, the First District Supervisor, John Bashong, has taken it upon himself to be our contact person between him and the mayors of the North County. We'll be speaking daily also about what's going on. I met this morning with the emergency response team at the Emergency Operations Center here in Paso Robles as our staff begins to mobilize and take the actions necessary to serve public health. We're in good hands there. I'm very pleased, and people are doing a great job there. Just a few other things that you need to know about what's going on. I heard from our Congressman Salud Carbajal. The federal government is beginning discussions now about financial assistance to happen somewhere down the road. He definitely wants to make sure that our local cities are included in that conversation. So we'll be supplying him information about the impacts, financial impacts of this situation. Mr. Cunningham at the state level says that the Senate has approved a $500 million measure to help hospitals, homeless services, and seniors with an authorization to go up to $1 billion without further action. So action is being taken to help our citizens. Coming up next, Planning Commission meeting Tuesday, March 24th, Airport Commission meeting Thursday, March the 26th, Paso Robles Youth Commission Advisory Committee Wednesday, April the 1st, and our next City Council regular meeting will be April the 7th. If you want to submit items for the agenda for April 7th, your deadline is March 25th.
Mr. Mayor?
I want to thank everyone.
Mr.
Yes.
Mayor, just one correction. We have had a couple of meeting cancellations. Just want to let the public know that the Planning Commission meeting scheduled for March 24th has been canceled, and the Youth Commission Advisory Committee meeting scheduled for April 1st has also been canceled.
Thank you. And as I tell everyone, schedules, as with everything else these days, are fluid and may change day to day. So thank you for that correction. I want to thank everybody listening in, everybody who participated in this new system. It's new to us. The council, I think, did a great job in working together in various locations. Thank you, staff, for making that work and getting this equipment set up and keeping our citizens informed to the greatest extent possible. With that, Mr. Gregory, take it away.
Yep. So I'd like to adjourn the meeting in Cacho Ocasian's name. He was a great community leader for our county, and a true statesman and state assemblyman of the year. He was just an incredible man. He started in Lebanon and lived his life out here in our county, and he's a pleasure to know, and I'm proud to have known him, and we're going to miss him. So I'd like to adjourn in his honor.
Second.
I will second that. And we have a second from Councilman Strong. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.